Jerusalem, the city of God, the soul of humanity. There is a place on earth where heaven once kissed the soil. A city carved in prophecy, bathed in blood, and crowned in light. A city whose every stone has been prayed over, fought for, and wept upon. Jerusalem. It is not just a city. It is the beating heart of three faiths, the spark of ancient empires, the battlefield of destiny. From shepherd kings to Roman legions, from crusaders to caliphs, from prophets to pilgrims, Jerusalem has seen it all. So how did this small hilltop city become the holiest, most contested, and most enduring place in human history? This is the full story of Jerusalem, the city of God, and the soul of mankind. There is no place on earth like Jerusalem. Not a city, not a symbol, not even a battlefield has carried the weight of so much holiness, sorrow, and hope. For over 5,000 years, this city has stood at the crossroad between heaven and earth, between divine promise and human struggle. It has been crowned by kings, sanctified by prophets, burned by empires, and wept over by generations. But how did a tiny settlement near a spring come to bear the spiritual gravity of the world? Let's begin where it all started, at the spring of Gihon. A city born from water. Around 3000 BC, amid the arid hills of Canaan, early settlers discovered a life-giving spring. That water would give birth to a city, Jerusalem. It was humble, fortified with stone, but destined for greatness. By 2000 BC, the Egyptians had taken note. They called it Jerusalem, the city of Shalom, the god of dusk and peace. It was a name that would echo through the ages. In time, Egyptian rule waned, and the city passed through many hands until, according to biblical tradition, a young shepherd turned king named David conquered it and made it the capital of Israel. David and Solomon, a kingdom rises. King David brought the Ark of the Covenant into the city. His son Solomon built a majestic temple, a house not just for the Ark, but for the very presence of God. Jerusalem became the beating heart of the Jewish world, the center of worship, justice, and identity. But glory is fragile. After Solomon's death, the kingdom split in two. Jerusalem remained the capital of Judah, but enemies circled like vultures. The Egyptians, the Assyrians, and finally, the Babylonians. Exile and ashes. In 586 BC, King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon besieged Jerusalem. The walls fell, the temple burned, and the people, God's people, were exiled in chains to Babylon. It was more than a military defeat. It was a spiritual wound. A people torn from their God's dwelling place. But even in exile, the dream of Jerusalem never died. Return and rebuilding. Decades later, a new empire arose, Persia, and its king, Cyrus the Great, did the unthinkable. He let the Jews return home. They rebuilt the city. They rebuilt the temple. It wasn't as glorious as before, but it was enough to rekindle hope. Then came the Greeks, with Alexander the Great. Then his successors, the Ptolemies and the Seleucids. Hellenization swept through Jerusalem. Statues of Zeus stood in the temple. Jewish identity was under siege. Until the Maccabees rose. In 164 BC, they took the city back and purified the temple, a victory still celebrated today as Hanukkah. Rome, the Messiah, and the cross. But the Maccabees would not rule forever. In 63 BC, the Romans marched in, and under their reign, something eternal happened. A carpenter's son from Nazareth rode into Jerusalem. He taught in the temple. He was crucified outside the city walls. And 3 days later, his followers claimed he rose from the dead. From this claim, a new faith was born, Christianity. And Jerusalem became its cradle. But Rome was watching. In 70 AD, after a failed Jewish revolt, the Romans returned with fury. They destroyed the Second Temple, left only a western wall standing, and banished the Jews. Jerusalem was renamed Aelia Capitolina, a Roman city now. Pagan temples stood where Solomon's once did. Yet the story was far from over. The Christian Empire and the Holy Sepulchre. In the 4th century, something changed. Emperor Constantine embraced Christianity. His mother, Helena, came to Jerusalem to find the place where Jesus was crucified and buried. She found it beneath a Roman temple. That temple was torn down, and in its place, The Church of the Holy Sepulchre was built. Jerusalem was now a Christian city, under the Eastern Roman, or Byzantine, Empire. For 300 years, the city basked in pilgrimage, prayer, and imperial protection. But change was coming from the desert. The rise of Islam and the Dome of the Rock. In the 7th century, a new prophet arose in Arabia, Muhammad. Muslims believe he journeyed to Jerusalem in a single night and ascended to heaven from the Temple Mount. In 638 AD, Caliph Umar peacefully entered Jerusalem. Under Islamic rule, the city flourished. Christians, Jews, and Muslims lived side by side, each with rights to worship. Soon, 2 magnificent shrines were built, the Dome of the Rock and the Al-Aqsa Mosque, sacred to Muslims, and symbols of the city's new era. Jerusalem was now holy to 3 faiths: Crusades, blood, and faith. But peace would not last. In 1099, Christian knights from Europe stormed the city during the First Crusade. They slaughtered Muslims and Jews, and made Jerusalem a Crusader kingdom. They turned mosques into churches and established military orders like the Templars and Hospitallers. But in 1187, a warrior named Saladin reclaimed the city for Islam. He spared the Church of the Holy Sepulchre and allowed Christians to leave in peace. Jerusalem would change hands again, between Crusaders and Sultans, until the Crusades ended and Islam regained lasting control. Ottoman rule and quiet decline. In 1517, the mighty Ottomans took over. Sultan Suleiman rebuilt the city walls that still stand today. Muslims, Christians, and Jews lived in quiet coexistence. But Jerusalem slowly faded into obscurity. Once a crown jewel, it became a forgotten outpost. By the 1800s, its population was only 8,000. Yet the dream lived on, in the hearts of Jews scattered across Europe. The return of the Jews. Persecution drove Jews back to Jerusalem. Philanthropists funded neighborhoods. Russian pilgrims, British missionaries, and European powers poured into the city, building churches, schools, and consulates. By the early 1900s, Jews were becoming the majority. And then, war, mandates, partition, and division. In 1917, during World War I, the British took Jerusalem. They promised a home for the Jewish people in Palestine and independence to the Arabs. 2 promises, 1 land. Tensions exploded. Riots shook the streets. In 1947, the United Nations voted to divide the land, 1 Jewish state, 1 Arab state, and Jerusalem as an international city. But war broke out instead. When the dust settled in 1949, Jerusalem was divided, west to Israel, east to Jordan. The Old City, home of the Holy Sepulchre and the Temple Mount, was behind barbed wire. 1967 and the reunification. In June 1967, during the Six-Day War, Israel captured East Jerusalem, including the Old City, for the first time in nearly 2,000 years. Jews could pray again at the Western Wall. Israel declared all of Jerusalem its eternal capital. But the world did not agree. Palestinians also claim East Jerusalem as their future capital. And so, the city remains divided, not by walls of stone, but by politics, prophecy, and pain. Jerusalem is not just a city. It is a mirror of humanity's longing for God, and a battlefield for the soul of history. The wars may rage, the peace may come and go, but deep in every pilgrim's heart, Jerusalem remains a dream, a promise, a place where heaven once touched the earth, and perhaps, where it will again. Through thousands of years, Jerusalem has stood, shaken, yet unbroken, divided, yet eternal, wounded, yet still holy. Empires have come and gone. Temples have risen and fallen. But the spirit of this city endures. It is the place where Abraham raised his knife, where Solomon built the temple, where Jesus carried the cross, where prophets walked, and where prayers never cease. To some, it is history. To others, destiny. To all, it is sacred. Because Jerusalem is not just a city. It is a promise. And perhaps, one day soon, it will be the place where heaven returns again.
Amen Stories team thanks you for watching the video. Please subscribe and like to bring God to everyone.